If you want to find out how I made this absolutely delicious and very nutritious salmon rice bowl in just less than 45 minutes, then stick around. Alright, so the first thing on the list is to make some rice. This is going to take the most amount of time and you don't want to be waiting on your rice to eat. I'm using white sushi rice because I think it's delicious. You can use whatever rice you want and just follow the instructions on the package, just like me. Next up is a Japanese cucumber salad. This will stay good for a couple of weeks in the fridge, so I recommend making a large batch and making it ahead of time. This is made a lot easier by using a mandolin. I will link mine in the description below, but it's got a ceramic blade so it doesn't dull out very easy. It's got 4 cutting settings and it's just small, nice, and consistent. I mean, even on my best cutting day with my sharpest knife, I'm not going to get slices that look quite that consistent. So yeah, check it out. Anyway, cut up your cucumbers. I did 2 whole cucumbers for this, really just because I wanted a lot of leftovers. Once everything is sliced, we're going to add a couple pinches of salt to help draw out some moisture from our cucumbers to make sure they stay nice and crunchy. Once that's mixed in, set to the side and let's start mixing up our pickling liquid, which consists of 1 cup of rice wine vinegar, 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, 3 tablespoons of honey, and 2 teaspoons of sesame seeds. All the measurements for this are in the description below. Again, this is for 2 whole cucumbers, so if you're only doing 1 cucumber, just cut all that in half. Just mix together until combined, and then we're going to set that aside until we're ready to use it. Getting into our salmon glaze, we're going to need a bunch of scallions, cut off the end part, and thinly slice the white parts until you get about halfway up. Set those aside for now, and while you have your knife and cutting board out, go ahead and cut off the end of a baby bok choy and set that aside for now too. Now that it's been 5 minutes or so, wash all the salt off your cucumbers and drain the water, and then grab your brine and just pour it right over. Give that a little mix if you want and make sure everybody's coated nicely and set that aside for now. Alright, time to start our salmon. I'm all about the crispy salmon skin, so we're going to heat up some oil in a non-stick pan and put the salmon skin side down at medium-high heat. Let the salmon cook and crisp up for about 5 minutes or until you see the salmon start changing colors on the edge. We're going to finish this off in a 300-degree oven for about 15 minutes. I ended up transferring my salmon to a different pan because I needed this pan to make my glaze, which I'm going to start making with my scallions heated up with some oil in a non-stick pan. Saute over medium heat for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're going to add 2 cloves of grated garlic and half a teaspoon of grated ginger. Cook that for another minute or so, and then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1/4 of a cup of rice wine vinegar, 1 tablespoon of white miso, and 2 tablespoons of honey. And really, I would recommend mixing all of these things together in a bowl and just pouring them into the pan at once, because trying to break up this miso with a spatula in a pan is not quite as easy as a bowl and a whisk. So please learn from my mistakes and do as I say, not as I do. Mix that for another minute or so, and then we're going with the zest and juice of 1 whole orange. We're going to let this caramelize and thicken for about 5 minutes. My pro tip for understanding when this is done is to watch the bubbles. At first this just looks like a rolling boil, but as the sauce thickens and gets more viscous, the bubbles are able to hold a lot more air and therefore they get a lot bigger. The same concept applies to why when I stir it like this, I can see streaks on the bottom of the pan. To finish this off, we're going to kill the heat, add a little bit of cornstarch mixed into water, mix until combined, and then pour into a container and set aside for our glazing. Last thing I'm going to do is throw a little bit of oil and baby bok choy into a pan and saute on medium heat for 2 to 3 minutes until it has a little bit of color and is nice and soft. After a very busy 15 minutes, it's time to take our salmon out of the oven and glaze it up. Plop on some of our glaze and paint it on with whatever brush you have, or a spoon, or your hand, or whatever you've got available, but just make sure to give it a nice even coat of sauce, and it's pretty much done. I hope you didn't forget about your rice, because at this point it should be done. Just give it a nice little fluff with a spoon or fork, and it's time to assemble. Of course, starting with as much rice as you want and topping it off with our glazed salmon. Add your bok choy and some of your cucumbers, and because I found them in my fridge, some pickled red onions, which you can learn how to make by watching my hash video. Top with the green part of your scallions and some fresh picked cilantro, and your salmon rice bowl is complete. I love recipes like this because a lot of these things I can make larger batches of that will stay good in the fridge, and I can do them ahead of time so that by the time I'm actually ready to cook, it's a really short process. The cucumbers in the sauce in particular stay good for a long time, and they've become pretty much permanent staples in my fridge. There's also like 100 things that you can put in this bowl that would also be super delicious, so have some fun with it, get creative, and I hope you try this out because it's pretty tasty. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something and enjoyed. Let me know what you want to learn how to cook next, and I'll see you next time.